our presentation today. So go ahead, Eric.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see y'all. Usually I do the announcements and kind of try to remember everything, but we have so much to cover. I'm going to cheat today. But welcome and thanks for lunch.
Thanks, Stacy, for lunch.
Thank you. You guys are missing out on lunch. We've got about 10 joining us via Zoom, which is fantastic. So just real quick, we've got a few announcements. We have our EXP shareholders coming up in Orlando, April 20th and 22nd. So if you know anyone that would like to go to that, that's not a part of EXP, they have free tickets available for that, which is really cool.
For non-agents.
For non-agents or non-EXP agents.
Right, non-EXP agents.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so really excited about that. We've also got some announcements for today. So our class today, after this class, we have an overview about EXP Realty at 1:30. So we'll have a break in between. If anyone wants to stick around and hear about the fastest growing real estate brokerage in history, we're going to do that today at 1:30. And then we're also going to do that tomorrow at 1:30 as well. It's Jeff, Lynn, and I that are doing that. And tonight we have a brand new class we are introducing. It's going to be Zoom. It will not be here at the office at 7 o'clock. It's for brand new agents or maybe some seasoned agents that like to, learn some new strategies on how to sell more real estate. So it's going to be real estate sales driven only at 7 o'clock tonight. And it'll be on the same Zoom that you're on right now, the same number. And that's one other thing we're doing. All of our classes that we're doing over Zoom today, tomorrow, the Tuesday night at 7 will be the same link every time to keep it easy. So if you can join us for that, if you want to sell more real estate and learn some great techniques, we'll do that every Tuesday at 7. We'll have some guest speakers as well.
Do we know the guest speaker?
Well, the guest speaker tonight is Jeff. I'll
It's
let
supposed
you
to be
know
a
on
surprise.
next week, right? Oh yeah, surprise. Yeah. And then also next week for the Lunch and Learn, we have the CEO of it's Ideal Estate. I don't know if you guys have heard of Ideal Estate, but it's probably the biggest realtor network in the country. They have thousands and thousands of agents networked around the country, and it's designed for agents to share referrals back and forth, the referral program, and to really make connections. So it's kind of like LinkedIn in a way, but only for realtors. Very powerful, and we're lucky enough to have the CEO going to be here next week to teach us how we can make connections. And by the way, it's for mortgage and title. There's different industries that use Ideal Estate. It's really cool. So we're excited about that. You guys can all come to that as well. And then the next few weeks after that, we're probably gonna have Josh Metal come in, do some training on mortgage as well. KV Core for lead generation. We haven't got those officially set up, but we're working on that as well. So that's kind of a nutshell. One other thing too, this Friday at noon here at the office, we have what's called Freedom Fridays, and we're going to start that kicking off this week. And it's going to be for agents that want to build a team with EXP, and that'll be here at noon. We've got an amazing guest speaker that's going to train that's amazing at recruiting and how to introduce things properly or a company. And I'm just really excited about that. So if you guys are interested in building a team, come join us on Friday. So that's it. Lynn, I'll let you jump in.
I just want to say we're super excited to have these guys official.
Yeah. You're welcome, guys.
I would like to introduce Stacy. Stacy is a good friend of mine from Draper, here in Draper. She is one of those rock star people that we love to hang around. We do boot camps together. We work out together. We love to do a lot of teamwork. She is an amazing loan officer. Everything she and her husband have done, they've been very successful at. And she has actually put on this lunch for us, and she wants to tell you a little bit about LTS.
Yeah, so Lynn and I mean, we've been friends for years, and she's the one who, at the gym when she's next to me, I'm like, I have to go harder than Lynn. So you can imagine how hard we get.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I am with LTS Mortgage. We're actually just right around the corner, right here in Draper. And I've just been in the industry. I'm kind of a baby in the industry. I've just been in the industry for about 3 years now. I feel like I've learned a lot of things since I've been in the industry. I'm a loan officer, but and I don't even know if Lynn knows this, but I'm also actually one of the top mortgage recruiters in the nation. So I've helped several companies, take their loan officers from, I've recruited hundreds of loan officers in the last couple of years that I've been in the industry. So I can be a resource for you that way too. But one thing I just wanted, before I turn the time over to Shantel, I want to kind of just talk to you guys for just a couple of minutes about the difference between lenders, because there is a difference in lenders. So when you have your banks, right? Your retail banks, Wells Fargo, Chase, all those banks. Then you have your correspondent lenders. Correspondent lenders are like your Academy Mortgages, Citywide, Security National. And then you have your brokers. And I am a broker. Altius Mortgage is a broker. And so I'll just kind of tell you the difference between the lenders. So if you're working with a retail bank like a Wells Fargo or a Chase Bank, basically what's happening is you're working with a loan officer who doesn't necessarily build his own clientele. More than often than not, they're working for their bank, they're working bank leads. You can usually look at like having a little bit longer turn times, and your rates are always going to be higher for your clients. And when I say higher, I mean significantly higher for your clients. So if you have somebody that's like on the verge of like qualifying, or maybe they want to qualify for a conventional loan, but they can't because their ratios are too high, sometimes it's good to look at the lender and to look at that pricing, because often as a broker, I can qualify people who a normal lender wouldn't be able to qualify for because my costs are just so much less. So then you have your correspondent lenders. Correspondent lenders, again, they have big buildings, they have managers, they have assistants, they have all these people. And so that pricing is also passed on to your consumer. So, your rates are going to be higher with your correspondent lenders. The cool thing about correspondent lenders is they have lots of extra money, and so they can do really cool things for you guys as realtors to help you build your business. So that is a really nice thing about being a correspondent lender. So as a broker, I am not, so as a correspondent lender and as a retail lender, you are loyal to who you work for. Right? Like Wells Fargo, if you work for Wells Fargo, your loans are going to go through Wells Fargo. If you work for Academy Mortgage, your loans are going to go through Academy Mortgage. As a broker, I am not loyal to a lender. I am loyal to my clients. And that's the thing that I love the most about being a broker. I can take their situation. I can look at how quickly we need to close. I can look at, the pricing, where they're at. I can look at, like, if it's an out-of-the-box deal, something that can be really, really tricky. Like if there's a loan that's legal to do, then I can do it for you. And my pricing is always going to be really, really low, and my fees are going to be really, really low. And you will have other lenders that'll tell you that you're going to get really great service, and that's why the fees are higher. But honestly, it's just a myth, because as a broker, we can give amazing service, we can give amazing rates, and we do some really cool things to help retain our clients. That maybe I'll get to talk to you a little bit during her presentation. So as I've been a recruiter in the industry, and as I've been a loan officer in the industry, I really have just kind of like naturally built a brand for myself. It wasn't something where I started out and I was like, okay, here's my plan, this is what I'm going to do. But it's something that I naturally did. Shantel knows how to do it strategically, which I think is really, really awesome. I think especially if you're just starting out as a realtor, like starting out with that mindset of who you want to work with, where you want to go, how you're going to market to clients, and then how you're going to retain your clients is super important. And so when Lynn asked me to bring some value to you guys, I just like immediately thought of Shantel, because everything she does has value. She's built an amazing brand for herself. And that doesn't mean a logo and a website, right? But in the industry, she's well known, she's well loved, she's respected. And so I'm going to turn the time over to
Quick
Shantel.
question, are you licensed in other states?
I'm licensed in Utah and California. Yep. So if you are looking for a broker,
Idaho and Washington.
I know. If you're looking for a broker in other states, I can give you a really, really great referral. So,
Awesome.
okay.
Woo!
Shantel, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Okay, so let me just give you, because this is kind of a unique class, so it requires a little bit of background so you guys know, well, A, who I am and why I'm qualified to teach what I teach, first of all, is important, and B, where this class kind of came from. So my background is actually marketing and advertising. So I've been in the industry for a long time. I've worked for Salt Lake Tribune, Deseret News, Utah Business Magazine, Utah Digital Services Agency #6, and I worked in broadcast media, so which means radio and TV. So I kind of have this abnormally broad range of marketing knowledge that all just kind of floats up in this brain of mine. And I actually own my own business. So I own a fitness studio in Sandy. So everything I teach is stuff that I've actually done myself. And I understand what it's like to be a business owner, especially as a real estate agent, where you are really bootstrapping your company. You're wearing all the hats from the beginning, right? Until you can grow yourself enough to start delegating. And so I get what that's like. I get what it's like to wear all those hats. And so I try to come up about this in a way that this is meant to be a starting platform for you to kind of build off of. And when you're ready to take it further, you can. But it's going to give you the tools to start doing things yourself. So that's how I operate. I've been working for ITS now for about 2 years. When ITS asked me to come work for them, they basically told me, well, you'll just take real estate agents to lunch and get them to do business with you. It's fantastic. And I said, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. So after a couple of months of back and forth negotiation, I said, I will come and work for you, but I want you to trust me and just let me do things my way. And so they gave me full reins, which meant I got to create my job basically. And so I've created a platform to where I just want to add value to agents. And so I've taken all of the knowledge that I've gathered in my years of marketing and advertising, and I've put it in, currently I have 9 approved CE classes. They're all on marketing and branding, a lot of social media, just bootstrapping, like all the work. And so, and I do a lot of agent coaching too, so that I can help you grow your business. Because in my eyes, that creates a better, longer standing relationship, and I'm able to help you grow your business. That does better. And when you do more business, we do more business. So it's a win-win. So that's kind of the background for me. Now, this particular class, when I first opened my fitness studios, I was part of a franchise. And a couple of years into it, I decided that was a terrible idea because the franchise was not good at all. So I had to make a choice, and I was either going to close my doors or rebrand. And so this is kind of the starting point of what I went through in my rebranding process. So it's a lot of hands-on. Everybody should have a packet. Please have a pen. You will be writing in this class. So make sure you have a pen. It is going to feel a little bit like junior high creative writing. But does anybody need pens or packets? Does everybody have them? Thank you. Thanks for passing those out. Right? Speak now or forever hold your peace. And then make sure this roster is floating around too. We want to make sure you guys get CE credit for it. So make sure the roster gets signed beforehand, and we'll get you guys credit for that. Okay? Any questions before we kind of kick off? No. All right. So here's what we are going to go through today. We're going to talk about a lot about personal branding. As realtors, you guys are your brand, right? And so it's really important that you brand yourself even over your brokerage. And yes, you have a brokerage to back you, but people don't buy into your brokerage. They buy into you as a person. So we're going to talk a lot about personal branding. We're going to talk about what happens when you do it yourself, what things you can do yourself, what you shouldn't do yourself. We'll talk about building your story. We'll talk about mission statements, logos, websites, brand messaging, all of this stuff. It's a lot. I usually teach this class in 2 hours. This is a very condensed version. So I'll be talking like an auctioneer really fast. If you want to follow up with me on a 2-hour class, I can let you know when and where I'm teaching in 2 hours in the future. So let's roll through. As a title producer, you cannot pay me to like, share, or comment on posts for social media. I cannot pay you to like, share, comment on your posts. I just always have to throw that disclaimer in here when I'm teaching because we talk a lot about social media. Okay, so the biggest thing I want you guys to understand is your brand is more than just a logo and website, like Stacy mentioned. Your brand is actually all of your systems and processes. Anything that your clients come in contact with is your brand. So you've got to be very, very, very intentional about what you're putting out there and how you operate your business and keeping your brand at the forefront of every decision you make. How many of you have heard of Oprah, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee? Yes? How many of you know their company names? Okay, okay, good. Yeah. So somebody's a Gary Vee fan. Right, I know, but it's harder for us to think of what their company names are, right? Like it's like we have to really think about it, and we're like, oh, okay, Oprah has Harper, but it's more of a thought process, right? So these guys understand the importance of a personal brand. So essentially your brand is your story, and people are going to make assumptions about you whether you know it or not. So it's about being intentional about what you put out there so that you're in control of the story that's being told. Does that make sense? Okay. I love this definition of a brand. It's from Marty Neumeyer. It's a person's gut feeling about your product, service, or company. So how do you create that gut feeling when someone interacts with you? So it's done by images, fonts, words, like whatever you're putting in your copy. All of those things are intentional and are going to give someone like that snap first judgment, right? So you've got to be in control of that. So think about when you're using images, what emotions do you want and feelings do you want to evoke in people when they interact with your brand? Yeah? Okay, who knows this guy? And I can email out slides too, so if you
Okay,
feel,
cool.
yeah.
I was gonna ask you, I don't know.
Yes, no, you're totally fine. I'm used to that too. So usually I have all the slides, but since we're like rolling through, I didn't bring all of them. So make sure that your email is on the roster wherever it's floating around, and I'll make sure you guys all get slides. Okay, so who knows this guy? Yeah, Richard Branson. I love this guy. I use this snapshot of his personal Twitter page. Now this is a few months old, so if you go and check it now, images and numbers may be different, but I want to discuss a couple of things on here. So if I look at his personal page, it had 12.6 million followers. And then I pulled numbers for 3 of his companies. So Virgin Atlantic has 587,000 followers, Virgin Galactic has 186,000, and Virgin Media has 250,000. So he understands that he needs to brand himself more so than his companies. Because anytime this dude starts a new company, people already know if his name is backing it, that it means something. It's got clout, it's got stability, and they know it's going to be successful, right? The other thing I love about him is he proclaims himself a tie-building adventurer, philanthropist, and troublemaker who believes in turning ideas into reality. So if we scroll back to his page, look at the images, the colors, the fonts, right? Every single thing that he does is done with intention. That's why you won't find pictures of him with a tie unless it's like cut off, right? He's big on cutting ties. But even the fonts and the colors that he uses, like red is a power color. That's why all of his companies are branded with red, right? The fonts that he uses, you notice he doesn't use anything soft and scripty. It's all power fonts, right? And we forget about that. Like when you're using it, fonts make a difference. And sometimes fonts are the last thing we even think about. So as you're driving around the next little while, just start to pay attention. Look at people's logos and websites. Notice what colors they use. Notice what fonts they use, what wording they use, and just start to figure out what resonates with you as a person. Okay, just for fun. Okay. Now, the one thing that I'm going to tell you to spend money on when you are ready and you have a company name and you're getting your own logo, this is the one thing I beg you from the bottom of my soul is to please get a professional logo done. How many of you have ever seen a real estate flyer where you go to an open house and the flyer's on the counter, or maybe it comes in the mail and the realtor's photo or logo is blurry or pixelated? What is your gut feeling when you see that?
Not professional.
Not professional, right? So someone's made a snap judgment about you and your business in that moment that maybe is true, maybe is untrue. But if they can't even put a decent logo on their flyers, then how would you trust them to sell your home, right? So that's the one thing that I beg you is please spend money on getting a good logo. When you have a logo professionally designed, your graphic designer should give you what's called vector images. You may not even be able to open those files. They're usually like a .ai, which is Adobe Illustrator, or PSD or EPS, and it's usually even in a format you can't open. But what vector means is that you can blow up the image and it exponentially is going to grow and be clear without getting like the dots and the pixels. You're going to keep clean, clear lines, right? So that's what you want. You should get transparents, you should get reverse images, tons of different files, but please spend money on getting a good logo, okay? All right, let's skip that one. Okay, so first worksheet we're gonna look at is who is your target audience. So this will be the first one on your packet. So I want you to grab this out. I think probably the biggest mistake that realtors make in the industry, especially if you're just starting out, is that you want to just market to everyone, right? How many of you are brand new, like less than 2 years? Okay, So as a new agent, you're like, I'll take any deal that comes to me, right? Because I need to get going and need the money, which is great, but you cannot market that way. Okay. So if I give you 2 examples, if I am putting an ad out there and I'm like, hey, my name is Pedro and I'm a realtor, buy or sell a house with me, right? Which is how every other 25,000 realtors in Utah markets. So how are you ever going to stand out, right? Or even attract anyone? Versus if I put out a message that says something to the effect of, I have a real soft spot in my heart for people transitioning to senior living, right? My grandma had a terrible experience and I would love to help someone go through that transition and make the process as smooth and peaceful as possible. Who do you know that is transitioning to senior living? Which one is going to actually attract people to your business? If my grandma is ready to move out of her house, who am I going to send her to? Right? So when you're marketing, you want to get very, very, very specific about who you're targeting so that you can attract people to you. So this is a really basic 4 questions, but I want you to write these answers down. So number 1, what age are my clients? Okay. Number 2, where do they live? 3, where do they work? And 4, what do they like to do? Is there anyone brave enough to share maybe what they're writing down? Anyone? Stacy.
So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot because I do really want to be specific on who my clients are. So I really, really love to work with first-time home buyers. Like I've done a ton of loans and I feel like the mom in me wants to take care of these kids. I really like that. And then the other clientele that I'm really working on is my Draper community. You know, we live out by the mountain right here, and I really like Draper is small enough that I feel like I can really build a name for myself as the Draper, you know, mortgage person. Yeah, the Draper mortgage person.
Love that. I would challenge you to get even more specific. So when I'm doing this, when I'm marketing, it's easier for me to feel like I'm talking to an actual person, like a person, right? So a person to me is not first-time home buyers because that's like a huge range, right? So for my studio, I actually have 2 separate avatars, kind of like you do, right? But mine are super, super, super specific. On one hand, I've got Haley, who's 31 years old. She has 2 children. She lives in Murray. She's a registered nurse at IMC Hospital. She's married. She likes to do outdoor activities when she's in her free time. She takes care of herself. She eats healthy, right? She just needs some time to like work out. That's number 1. Number 2, I've got Jane, who's 46 years old, lives in the Sandy Draper area. Her kids are almost all the way out of the house. She's got a couple in college and 1 left in high school. She's stay-at-home mom. She's been working as a mom her whole life. And now as their kids are going, she's finding time to take care of herself again, right? So see how specific I got with those? Like I know their exact age. I don't even say 25 to 35. I know 31 or 46. Right? So when I'm putting together a marketing campaign, I'm actually talking like, am I talking to Haley or am I talking to Jane? And it's easier for me to actually have that conversation with a specific person than it is to be too general. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that way I know exactly who I'm talking to and exactly who I'm marketing to, because that's going to attract people to me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I would recommend getting really in tune with who this is. Now, those of you guys that are brand new or within like the last couple of years, a couple little tricks, like you could, if you've done a few transactions, maybe think of who your favorite client was. Like if you could clone them 100 times over and work with them every single deal, who is that or who was that? And maybe use that as your map, okay? If you've not even done 1 deal yet, the beauty is you get to create that. Right? Who you're naturally drawn to and who do you work best with in general, and start to create what that looks like for you. Like first-time home buyers are awesome and your sweet mama spirit does so well with those, but it's a lot more work, yes?
Well, see that like as you're saying this, I'm thinking like, I don't want to attract I will do their loans, right? But like, I'm looking for first-time home buyers who have been responsible for their credit, you know, who have jobs, maybe who have just graduated from college. You know, I mean, that's really like that totally.
Because that's right. It shifts your
There's
perspective.
2 different types of first-time home buyers.
Absolutely.
There's the ones that are really hard and the ones that are just really a pleasure.
Right? Because there's times where you can work yourself to death in your situation, right? So be really, really specific about who that is and what that looks like so that you're able to hone in on who you're talking to. That's going to help you start to frame your messaging, right? Because like I tell people, like, yes, you have branding and you're consistent. We'll touch on this a little bit later, but I'm speaking to someone differently on Snapchat, right? Because it's a different type of conversation. It's a different vernacular. So you need to know who you're talking to so that you can use, yeah? Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about creating your story. So let's start with these questions on the left. You've got 4 questions. Number 1, what product or service do I provide? Obviously, we know you're in real estate. That's a no-brainer, right? But even go beyond that. Like, where do you want to specialize? What's kind of your niche? And I'm sorry, these are kind of like accordion holding. So just kind of delve a little bit deeper into it. What are my core values? We'll get into that a little bit later on too. Who is my competition? How am I different? This is probably one of the biggest things I can say. We are swimming in the sea of real estate agents and mortgage professionals, especially in Utah, right? I would say 99% of people out there try to market that they're better than everybody else, right? Better rates. What do people in your industry advertise? Rates, customer service, turn times, right? But everyone markets that way. So it's easier for you to market how you're different than it is to be better. So you've got to find what I call your personal flair or personal special sauce, whatever that is, and use that to your advantage. How are you different? So who is your competition? And just take a look at how they're marketing and how you can put a different spin on it. So to give you an example of that with my studios, my biggest competitor is probably Orange Theory, which makes no sense to me because we could not be more different. But I've got to be able to market how we're different, right? So I'll do campaigns a lot that ask people like, do you hate treadmills? Do you hate row machines? Right? Because, right? Because we know if you hate those things, you know, if you come to me, you're not getting any of that, right? So it's going to be, when people come into me, they're not disappointed when they walk in and there's no machines, right? But on the other hand, it stands out because they're all marketing, you know, like throwing weights around and running on a treadmill, and I can't stand running on a treadmill. So if you're with me, like, don't run on a treadmill. There's other ways to get fit, right? So it's all about taking and being different than how everybody else is. You've got to almost market the opposite of what everyone else is doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, questions on the right. These are more of your personal questions, right? To help you start to pull out that personal sauce, that personal flavor. What do I want to be known for? What makes me stand out? What benefits do I bring to my customers? And how do I want my client experience to feel? So remember I mentioned systems and processes in the beginning. All of that has to be based every step along the way. You need to make sure that what you are doing aligns with how you want people to feel during the process. Does that make sense? That is your brand, how you make people feel, especially in these days where we are so disconnected with computers and phones and whatever. We forget to have that connection. How do we want people to feel? That's going to be the magic sauce to your company, and to have those systems and processes so dialed in that it is just a fluid, smooth transition for people, right? I'm going to play, while you guys are filling these out, I'm going to pull up a video here that I love. How many of you guys are Simon Sinek fans?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
He's the best. This is a little clip from a TED Talk he did a long time ago. So the audio is terrible. Is the audio going to be good on here?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. So we're
There's a
going to
remote
start this
back
up. Oh yeah, we're good. We're really good. Woo! Okay, sorry for guilt yelling. Next time. That's fine.
I'll call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Buy one? Totally different, right? You really got a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. The proof is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. An MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, it's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. We want one. With MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. No. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information and features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. Sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and the figures and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. So how do we use that verb? It doesn't feel right because the part of the brain that controls decision-making is the language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't the other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
I love that. He's so good. I love his books. He's written several books, but Start With Why is amazing, and so is Find Your Why, if you've read that one before. I love that he uses Apple as the example, because I think Apple is such a great illustrator of marketing with your why. I mean, if you think about it, how many of us are Apple users, right? And how many of you live and die by Apple? It's kind of ridiculous how many people are you are so emotionally invested in a phone, right? And even on the opposite end, our Android users, it's almost like a visceral hate for Apple, like, right? Like it really is so amazing, but it's because of they've marketed to their why that people like have such an emotional response over phones and computers. It's insane, right? And I love too, if you track Apple at all, it's amazing to me to watch how with their company, anytime they are aligned with their why, they are top dogs, right? And the second they pull away from it, I mean, they've almost lost their company how many times, right? Because, and it's anytime they've pulled away from their why. And when they come back into alignment with it, they come back in again as top dogs. They're a fascinating company. I love watching their stuff. So yes, definitely recommend anything Simon Sinek writes. He, I think, is amazing. I follow all of his stuff. It's fantastic. But people are naturally going to be interested in your stories, right? So the reason we're walking through a lot of these prompts is to get your brain thinking about ways to start articulating who you are as a person, right? We kind of get stuck, especially in Utah, in this land of where we feel like we can't talk about ourselves or talk about our business because it feels like we're bragging or that we're rude or whatever, but we've got to get that out of our heads. You've got to get comfortable with talking about who you are and who your company is. So a lot of these things are geared towards helping you start to think about how to articulate who you are as a person in a business, okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about mission statements. I believe a good mission statement should be a reflection of your why, and I think it needs to be something that you revisit often because we change as people. If I started my company 7 years ago, I'm not going to have the same, like things evolve, right? We kind of change, but we get this thing stuck in our head that our mission statement has to be that thing that's like forever, like this is what we're doing, and it's not. Like you've got to make sure that it aligns with who you are and where you're going at all times. So I tell people to revisit it often. When I coach clients, I can't tell you, like 95% of the time, I'll come in and say, okay, well, where's your mission statement? Or what is your mission statement or your manifesto or whatever? And 95% of the time, it's one of those things like, oh, hold on, I think it's hanging up by the printer. I'm going to go grab it 1 second, right? And they have to go find it somewhere where it's printed down. If it doesn't mean something to you, then don't have one, right? It needs to be something that actually means something to you. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of things. We're going to start with this life purpose exercise. So again, this seems like when it says life purpose, it seems like this is what's going on your tombstone. Don't worry about that. It's okay to change. Again, this is just something that's going to get you thinking about ways to articulate yourself. So the first thing I want you to do is list 2 of your unique personal qualities. Okay. And then once you have those, let's list 1 or 2 ways you enjoy expressing those qualities when you're interacting with others. And then once you have that, assume the world is perfect right now. What does this world look like? How is everyone interacting with everyone else? What does it feel like? So this one you want to write in a present tense statement. So not like futuristically, you want to write it as is right now. And then once you have that one, combine the 3 prior little sections into a single statement. So you can pull bits and pieces or words or whatever and write up a single statement. Cool. Okay, we're gonna kind of breeze through this, but obviously you can come back to it. How many of you kind of struggled with writing things down? Yeah, it's hard to talk about yourself, right? So you got to get into the habit, and any of these things, like, just kind of start coming back to things and adding to it. So let's talk a little bit about core values. So as you've probably noticed, brands are becoming more and more values driven, right? In society right now, especially with really from generations millennial and younger, they are very values driven. That's why you see things all the time like boycotts of Chick-fil-A, or you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things happen on a regular basis because these generations want to do business with companies that they support the same value system, right? So you've got to be able to know what your values are in order to talk about these things. When I've had the pleasure, actually, the last probably year, I've been working with ITS a lot on our branding because I'm like, if I'm teaching this class, like we better be an example and better be on the point, right? So we've been going through this whole process with them too, and we finished it up probably about 4 months ago. But when I brought this up, one of our owners, bless his heart, is a little bit older, and he said, I don't care about marketing millennials. They're not doing anything. And I was like, yeah. So I was like, I think we kind of think that millennials are like 18 to 22, right? But really they're into their late 30s at this point. So I'm personally only a couple of years out of the millennial. I think I'm in that weird Zennial subgroup that they made. But I said, I've bought and sold 7 homes in my life, which is basically like 14 transactions, right? I said, I don't know, you might want to market to me. And his son was in the room and I said, Patrick, how many homes have you bought and sold in your life? Because he is definitely a millennial. And he said 4. So I was like, I don't know, like, I think maybe we ought to pay attention to this. And he was like, oh, like the light bulb went off in his head, right? So we've got to really be able to define what our core values are. So number 1 is, what do you stand for? These I describe as kind of the intangible things, right? They're things that that you stand for no matter what. They are non-negotiable for you, right? Whereas number 2 is going to be more of your tangible things. So it's going to be like family, time, hobbies, like things that have more of a description. Does that make sense? So try to list a few out in each of the sections. Okay, looks like most people are kind of done writing, so we'll skip through. All right, strengths and credibilities. Now, this is where I say you've got to drudge up your past life, okay? Most of us don't just hop right out of high school into real estate. We've done something before we came into this industry that is going to give us a background that's different than what other people in the market have, right? So I call that your past life. We kind of happened into real estate a little bit later. So what is it that you've done in your past that brings a different light to who you could be in your business, right? So for example, if I was a real estate agent, which I'm obviously not, but I used to own an interior design company. So for me, I would probably take a spin through new construction because that's a world I understand very, very well. I can talk about building codes and all sorts of things that'll bore your guts out. But for me, that's a different avenue that I have that gives me a strength that most people don't have. Does that make sense? So think about what it is that you've done in your past life and how you can use that to your advantage in your business now. Does that make sense? Strengths and skills tend to be somewhat interchangeable, but I like to say like strengths are going to be more of like your character type things, where skills are going to be things that are more like, you know, I learned Excel or I learned this, like, does that make sense? Yeah. But sometimes they're interchangeable. Okay, let's talk about building a mission statement. So as you're going through this, and once you finish up, obviously you're not going to walk out of this with your perfect mission statement, right? But this is kind of building blocks. You can even start to go back through these worksheets and start to pull out words that you see as themes, like on some of the different pages, and start to build in things that mean something and add value to you. So the first one here, what is your want, need, or why potential clients should do business with you? And the subpart to that is give a specific or example or story that illustrates this statement and try to define your target customer or avatar. So that perfect client that we built up at the first, if you have something specific that relates to them, try to use that here, because remember, we're trying to speak to that target audience. So anytime we can pull things from them is going to help us. Does that make sense? And then number two, what does your business do for its customers that makes it special for that target customer? The The subpart to this one, I actually, and every time I teach this class, I say this and I keep forgetting to do it, but I really need to move this out so it has its own standalone number, because I really think this is probably the most important thing that you can do, is what good are you doing within the community and for your customers. So there's a lot of real estate agents out there, right? And for most of us, real estate is kind of the vehicle that drives us for whatever our passion project is, right? Like, real estate's not necessarily fun all the time, but we do it because it can fund other things that we're passionate about, right? And that is a really good way to make yourself stand out and be different in the community. So a couple of examples I can give you. One is a friend that I've been coaching that is an agent. She's brand new. And her story is that when she was first in the workforce and she and her husband had kids, they decided that he was going to stay home and she was going to work, because she was still kind of broken from whatever her past was. She grew up in a really dysfunctional place and she didn't want to pass that on to her children. So they decided dad would stay home and she would work. Well, her mother-in-law passed away, and she came to the funeral and her husband was giving the eulogy and talking about what an amazing person his mother was and how kind she was and how much she was loved and all of these things. She said, I was sitting there holding the hands of my two children and thinking, if I passed away, no one could say those things about me because of whatever was going. And that to her was a turning point to where she made a complete 180 with her life, healed whatever was going on, and she's a fantastic mother now. And now that she's in real estate, her passion and drive, she actually takes 33% of whatever income she makes from real estate and donates it to a foundation that supports school teachers. Because she was 33 years old when her mother-in-law passed away. So that was when her life changed, and her mother-in-law was a teacher. So she gives back to the organizations that provide school supplies for teachers. So she's able to take something about her personal story and give back to the community, right? So that is a fantastic way you can brand yourself and set yourself apart from all the other 25,000 agents in Utah, right? Another example, I have a really good friend that's a photographer. And she is so extremely talented. She has a master's degree in photography. She is amazing. But there's also a lot of photographers in Utah, right? There's a lot of people that just, especially like the stay-at-home moms that think I'm going to go buy a nice camera and all of a sudden I'm a photographer, right? So she's competing with these people for pricing. And she was really struggling for a while because she was trying to really set herself apart from, like, how do I differentiate myself when someone over here is willing to do something for $75 that I charge $300 for, right? So she started telling her story and her why behind what she does. So she had lost a child when they were young, like 2, and her passion is capturing moments for families that she no longer gets to capture. And anytime she does a photography session for a family, she actually donates a session to a family that has a terminally ill child so they can capture those moments before they lose their child, right? So all of a sudden, there's a reason to support her, and people don't care about price because they understand what she does for the community, so they want to support that, right? So it gives people a reason to align with you. How many of you have ever come up in a deal where you're trying to get like a listing and you're up against another realtor that they're like, well, they're going to do it for 1%, but I'm over here going for 3%, right? You're laughing because how many times has that happened?
Seems like every
Right? Right? So once you have backbone and you have story and you can talk about the value that you bring not only to them but to the community, they will never question you on price again, right? And if they, like, the people that go with somebody based on price are not loyal at all, right? So you may win a client and come down and you may get them because you came down on pricing, but are they going to stay with you on the next transaction? Nope, right? But when you can create that tie to people and they're emotionally invested in you, that's when you win, right? When everybody wins. So how do you set yourself up so that that is what the value you bring to the table is not only for them and what you're going to do to buy or sell their house, but also you're giving back and you're supporting a bigger cause. So if you don't have something you support, I challenge you to find something you're passionate about that will drive you to make the phone calls you don't want to make and to build part of your brand. What can you support and align yourself with? So that one's huge, huge, hugely important. Number 3, it says, what does your business do for its employees? Now, a lot of you, especially if you're just starting out, probably don't have employees yet, right? So think about futuristically. Eventually, You'd like to have transaction coordinators and buyer's assistants and like all of these different things that you can have in your team. So what do you want your company to provide for them, right? What does that look like for future? Because it's a lot easier to set your culture up and start it out on the right foot before you start than it is to try to fix the poor culture down the road. So what do you want that to look like when you do grow your team? And then once you have that, using the elements of those four and maybe even some from previous pages, pull some things together to start to create your mission statement. Okay, so that's going to help you get a foundation for what you are, what you stand for, and why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about tangible assets. So when you're ready and you're ready to get logo in your own website, again, we kind of touched on this, but start to look at what colors appeal to you, what fonts, what all of that stuff, what kind of images you want. And I recommend you start what's called a branding guide. So keep these things in a file, all of your color codes, your logos, photos that are appropriate. So if you have somebody helping you with flyers or whatever, it's really easy for you to hand them a packet that says, this is my brand and this is what your parameters are, than it is to like try to fix things because they're not quite getting it, right? So that's what I recommend. All right, let's talk a little bit about brand messaging. So this is going to be a short little segment. And how are we doing on time, actually?
We're good.
Okay. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we can get in as much, so I'll start talking real fast. So your brand message is a little tagline that goes along with your company name. Okay, you want it to be big and bold, very clear, concise, and it needs to be meaningful and memorable. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So the first one's here. Harley Davidson. We are Harley Davidson. When you hear that statement, you guys know what a Harley is, right? You can almost feel that rumble in your chest. You know it's a quality machine, right? Yeah, like you know, right? Like it's like, ugh.
I almost just left. I on my bike.
I love it. I love it, right? So BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Those words are very, very intentional. Notice they use the word machine, not car or automobile. Right? There's a reason, because what does machine make you think? Right? Yeah, kind of getting it? Yeah, it's like, you know, we get that. And then Coca-Cola, to inspire moments of optimism and uplift. Like I throw this one in there because no one's ever heard it, right? You're laughing because you're like, what? But you're like, oh, now I get it. The polar bears,
the world to see.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, oh, I get it now, right? It all makes sense. So just a short little tagline that you can do, that is a very powerful way to get your brand across quickly, right? Okay, I'm going to tell you guys this little story here. Jasmine Bina is someone I follow because I'm a nerd marketer, but most of you have probably never heard of her before. But I love this. She says, if 100% of decisions are made emotionally, why are we still using logic-driven, pain point-focused messaging frameworks to brand our companies? How many of you have gone to a listing appointment and pitched all features and benefits? Yes, you know, that's good. I'm glad. Most real estate agents get really fixated on features and benefits, right? And we forget the emotional connection. So I love this story that she tells. I bought $85 worth of cosmetics yesterday. They're good brands, Logic. They made me look nice, Logic, and are high quality, and are necessary for my brand research in the luxury space, Logic-ish. But really, I felt like hot shit walking through Sephora and trying on makeup that was going to transform me into an empowered, beautiful, unstoppable woman. Emotion. You already know what made me drop the cash. There's no pain point to solve here. There's no real hard-pressing need. There is instead a human intangible that all of them have capitalized on, an emotional need that's rarely expressed. So whether that's to fit into a tribe, realize one's potential, or escape reality, unspoken emotions like these are far more compelling than any pain point. How many of you think that real estate is an emotional thing? Right? If you're not nodding your head profusely, you are up in the night, right? You can sell features and benefits all day long, but if you walk someone into a home to show them a home, what does it come down to? How they feel when they walk into that home, right? It doesn't matter, features, benefits, anything. They're going to walk in and base that on how they feel, right? And we are missing the boat if we are pitching ourselves on features and benefits all day long. I mentioned earlier that if this is connection based, right? We are so starved for connection right now that when you can learn to market yourself and create an emotional connection with clients, you will have clients for life. They are so starved for connection right now that when they finally get it and they can't even explain it or put a finger on it, they're drawn to you. They want to be around you. They want to help you. They want to give you business. It's all based on an emotional connection. And once you get that, your business will skyrocket because people forget what it's like to connect and they don't know, right? That is one thing that can change your business. So start thinking about how you can market yourself in an emotional way. Yeah? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about consistency. I mentioned earlier when we're talking about different platforms, your business is going to look different. You're going to speak differently on Snapchat than you are on LinkedIn, right? But there needs to be enough consistency that you're recognizable across all the platforms. So it still looks and feels like you, but it's going to be a little different. Does that make sense? So once you have that, these are kind of, this is our last slide, so I'll get you out the door. These are kind of the next steps that I recommend. I recommend you guys get a branded photo shoot with a photographer. I want you to have a conversation with your photographer about your brand so that you can tell them, this is how I need to look, this is how I want it to feel, this is the emotion I need to bring across in my images, whatever that is for you. If you do that before your photo shoot, your photos will be 1,000,000 times better, okay? Get outside feedback. Oh, back to the photos. Please do something that reflects your personality, okay? How many of us have ever seen the realtor, I call it the realtor schmuck photo, where it's like a dude in a suit and he's standing there with his arms folded and he's so serious, right? Like if that's you, that's great. Like go all the way. But if that is not your personality, people are gonna smell a fraud from a mile away. So you've got to do something that is with your personality, but is professional. Does that make sense? So have fun with it. If you are a goofy, fun person, have goofy, fun photos, but just have them professionally done. So that way you're attracting the people in that you want to attract, right? I tell this little story. One of our owners, his name is Scott. I know some of you guys close with us, with Brian. Have you guys met Scott before? Okay, funniest dude. He's so funny. When he was first starting in escrow, one of his deals that he had was like a huge commercial land deal. I mean, it was like 14 months in the making to get it closed. And he was working with attorneys after attorneys on both sides. And so when he went into the closing finally after 14 months, he shows up in a suit and tie because he wanted to dress the part for who he was coming in to meet, right? And whoever his actual client was, when Scott walked in the door, goes, "What the hell are you wearing?" Right? Because Scott, if you know Scott, is like cowboy boots, like he's not worn a tie maybe twice in his life, maybe his wedding and that closing, like he does not wear a suit ever, right? But people knew that was not his authentic self. And he's like, so A, I walked into that meeting and I felt like a fool because I got called out for not being who I was. And B, I am uncomfortable in suits. So people could tell it was disingenuous. It was not me. And so he's like, I've never worn a suit again. Like you might catch him in a sport coat. You will never catch him in the full suit and tie ever. And so he now realizes like people can tell when you're not being you and you're trying to be something you're not. And the biggest thing I can tell you, when you are trying to be something you're not, I use this analogy of water. When we're kids, we're just fluid, free-flowing water, right? We don't care. We're just having our day, doing whatever. And somehow, as we grow, we get this idea of what we think we're supposed to be. Or maybe somebody coaches us and we think we're supposed to be them, right? And so we try to put ourselves into this ice cube tray and conform into this space and size that we think we're supposed to be. Well, that takes energy, right? When you're out of that tray, you have to fight to stay as that ice cube. And it takes tons and tons of energy versus if you just let it go and figure out what makes you awesome and start to capitalize on that and play to your strengths, then you have all this freed up energy because you're not wasting it trying to be someone you're not. So that is what you've got to do. And that's going to help your business flourish because you're not spending so much time trying to be something you're not, right? People buy you for you. So just make sure that whatever you put out there is true, authentic you. right? That's how you stand out among the other 25,000 real estate agents in Utah, is by just being you, because there's not another one, right? So I love that. Once you get some things done, I recommend you get some outside feedback. Have someone else conduct a survey, right? Because people don't want to hurt your feelings, but you want to make sure that what you're putting out and is what people are getting back, right? So that you make sure that they're getting across the message you're trying to get, so that if you need to tweak it or not, right? So have somebody else conduct it, have them interview 1 or 2 people that know you really well, 1 or 2 that know you pretty good, and then 1 or 2 that only know you through your brand, and just get that feedback. What do they feel? What do they see, when they interact with your brand? The last thing I'll tell you to do is to start collecting key stories. So when you're putting together a marketing campaign, it's really super helpful to have like client reviews or have things like stories just in a file that you can pull from and start to pull language and words from. A lot of times our clients can say things about us better than we could ourselves, or they'll use different words or whatever that we can start to pull from that maybe we wouldn't think of ourselves. So if you just have those in a file and just start collecting them, super, super helpful. So that in a nutshell is it. We made it all the way through. Okay, right? Any questions here? No?
So much value.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
No questions?
Okay.
That's good. Any of you guys have any questions? You can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. Otherwise, I'm gonna log you out.
Jeff, who wants to?
Kim, Mick, Erica, Tyler, Laszlo, Jesse. There was a couple others earlier. But
Yeah, some people have been kind of.
I was really
Yeah.
hoping some of our Idaho and Washington people were watching.
Cool.
Okay, how many of you, when she was doing that little exercise, realized how little you've thought about your mission statement and what you stand for? And wasn't that hard? I mean, to me, I was like, God, I need some wine and a quiet room. Give me a minute, quit rushing me. Because I haven't really spent
It's a
the time.
lot to do in an hour. So.
Yeah. But I'm kind of challenging myself to finish that though, because it's something I think about, it pops in my mind, it's too hard, an hour goes by and I'm done or whatever. And then my other takeaway was to be the authentic you. You kind of ended with that, because in real estate, how many phonies are in real estate? They're trying to be something they're not because they think that's what they're supposed to be. Real estate education is all about what somebody else is telling you what you should be doing. I'll give you an example on that. I've never had a listing presentation ever. And when we were with Keller Williams, the team leader wanted me to come to the team meeting to give my listing presentation because they kind of took a vote on who they wanted to see or whatever. And I said, I don't have one. Because I literally don't have one. I don't have a flip chart. I don't have what everybody teaches. I don't go in with my comps. I just do it different. And I didn't realize what my listing presentation was until I actually thought about it. I thought about it, so well, I kind of do have one. I do this. I walk in and I start telling them how I'm going to increase the value of their home. I'm finding out what their needs are. I have my own agenda, and it's about them. It's not about me, how much my brokerage sells, stats, numbers, all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's the same thing in creating your mission statement. You kind of have to think about it. I think we all kind of already maybe have one. I probably do somewhere in there, but I got to figure out, oh yeah, that is it. You know? And then I can articulate
Right? So
it.
you're one of my 95%.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah,
That was
you bet.
awesome.
And
Very
then Stacy, Stacy does so many great things for her business too. Like, what are some of the things that you do when we talk about being different instead of marketing the same? What are some of the things you do that set you apart?
I think for me, I've always just tried to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm adding value, that I'm not asking for things that I'm adding for value. As a recruiter, I've tried to, I truly do care about loan officers and what is best for them and where they end up and where they go. And I think that that's something that I've been able to portray through some of the things I've done. Like I started a Facebook group. It's called, one of the things I've done to brand myself is I've used Facebook groups a lot. I have a little bit of a harder time, like just posting my whole life on Facebook for anybody to see, like, my neighbor next door or whatever. But if I can get it into a smaller group of people that I feel really comfortable with, then it's really easy for me to be authentic. And one of the ways that I've done that is through a group called Powerful Mortgage Women. And it's just been an opportunity for me to really share, like, really who I am. And I've made really, really strong connections. And as far as like recruiting, I mean, this might be helpful for you guys because people just call me now. They don't even know that I'm a recruiter in the industry, but they see me as somebody who cares about them and who really wants what's best for them. And so I think that just trying to add value wherever you can. We have another group that we're just really getting started called Draper Happenings that we're really going to hone in on the Draper community. But it's more about like a feeling and bringing people together. You know, it's not about us promoting our business. It's about bringing people together and having everybody just know who we are and consider us their friends in the community because they see us all the time. So those are a couple of
That's
things
awesome.
that we're working on.
I like what you said too. It's like when people know it's not about you and it's about them and you truly care about what their needs are over and above your own. Because how many agents, I mean, we all heard stories, we've done deals with agents that are just trying to protect their own commission and they're making decisions on behalf of their clients they really shouldn't be. So as soon as they know that, you know what, you're gonna do the right thing for them, no matter what, that's what that really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, for sure.
Thanks, Chantel. That was
Yeah.
great.
Great, and we'll get you guys the slide deck that has all the packet that we were filling out as well, even those that are blocked off, so. Okay, stick around if you want to. I think we're gonna do an overview in a little bit, otherwise, you guys can log off. I'll just kind of keep an eye on whether or not you're still there.
We can track that down.
I need to follow you.
Yeah.
That was great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's just connect on Facebook.
I wish we would have had